Hi everyone, welcome back to my third video. In this video I will be redoing this 1940s Art Deco Lane cedar chest. And this piece has a special place in my heart because the very first piece I ever found on Facebook Marketplace and flipped was a Lane cedar chest, and that was almost exactly a year ago. So I decided I wanted to do another one. I have done 3 others since, but I fell in love with this one. I found it for $30 at an estate sale and I snagged it. I just love the Art Deco style. You can see this one has quite a few scratches on the top, complete with stickers and veneer chips. The inside is pretty clean, however. So I have a vision for this. I love the Art Deco style, but I know it's a hard fit in with most households. So I want to try to modernize it just a little bit while remaining true to the Art Deco period. You can see the inside here. It is really clean. It has that old school green felt, which I will be getting rid of. But other than that, the inside is pretty clean. The outside, like I said, does have some veneer damage that was hard to get from this angle. But here is the underside. With the Lane cedar chest and most Lane furniture, if you read the serial number backwards, it'll give you the manufacturing date. So this was in fact made in 1942. So first things first, you can see me putting all of the hardware into a very special Ziploc baggie just for safekeeping. Took off the hinges and then got to work, peeling off the stickers first. They were pretty easy to come off. They were just child stickers. And next step was to use my simple green cleaner in a spray bottle and just get it as clean as possible. My next step was to strip back the finish. I always like to defer to lacquer thinner and some 2/0 steel wool. Just kind of drench the area with the lacquer thinner and with soft circular motions, just try to get as much as that finish off. It does get kind of sticky and goopy, so you want to work in small patches and just wipe it back with some paper towel along the way. Underneath this pretty dark amber finish, there was some beautiful veneer, especially the top. I mean, look at that. That's with no sanding, just peeling back the finish. So gorgeous walnut veneer. Fell in love with it. And here with the diagonal veneer in the front, just kind of gives it that extra Art Deco interest. So next I moved on to sanding the piece, always sanding with the grain, and I moved through my grits. So I actually started just with a 150 since the finish was completely off at this point. 150, 180, and finished with 220. I also sanded back all the little details like the legs, the molding, and then I decided to use my Surf Prep sander on the sides because that finish was a little thicker. This is the back of the piece. It had a coating of really thick varnish, unlike the front of the piece. So I tried with my sander first, and it was really just gumming up my sander. I couldn't tell what it was. I thought, okay, well, let me grab my scraper and see if I can just scrape it off. Maybe it is lacquered. It wasn't. But then I decided, well, it kind of looks like shellac. So I know shellac will dissolve and melt with a little bit of denatured alcohol. So that's what I poured on in a little test patch and tried to dilute it, or dissolve it rather, with some 2/0 steel wool. And that did seem to be working. So I used that method to work my way all the way down the back of the chest. After I had used the denatured alcohol to strip back as much finish as possible, then I went in with my Surf Prep sander and peeled back the rest of the residual finish. You can see I look very excited here. I hand sanded everything other than the back. I really wanted to pay extra attention to the top here since it was so beautiful. So I hand sanded it, especially giving extra attention to the curved waterfall edge. That's a really easy area to burn through the veneer. So I was very light-handed with this. And again, just work through the grits, 150, 180, and 220. Here's a little piece of chip veneer from the skirt, the front skirt of the piece, and I used this Famo wood filler that I really, really like in the color walnut to just kind of press it in there. This stuff does dry really fast and it dries really hard. It'll dry in the can long before you use the entire can, but you can dilute it with some lacquer thinner and it comes back to life. So I let it dry and then sanded the majority of it off. And you can see I used my actual sander here to just smooth it out as much as possible. I did the same thing with some of the other veneer chips in that same area. You can see them in this shot. They do stand out right now, but I will color match them a little bit later. Next, I used General Finishes Gel Stain in the color Antique Walnut for all of the trim pieces and the feet. This stuff is super easy to apply. You just wipe it on, let it sit for just a few minutes, don't let it dry out, and then you just wipe it back. So it's a nice subtle color difference. I wasn't going for super dark here, just something that will mask some of that really lighter wood that makes up the trim pieces. The original finish on these chests was a lacquer finish, and I've done a lacquer finish before, but I wanted something softer, so I used Osmo's Poly X oil to really highlight the beautiful, gorgeous veneer, especially on the top. I really feel like it just glows from the inside with this finish. So I know it probably feels like I bounce around a lot, but this is the order that I work in. So after I let the hard wax oil set, I turned my attention to this broken piece of trim along from the top. It was part of the molding. You can see it has this like double fluted design. It was chipped, so I did my best to chisel out as much as possible, and I had these really skinny wooden dowels. So I thought, you know what, that size actually would work. So I tried to sand the back of it, kind of chisel some of it out to basically make it as flush to the rest of the trim piece as I possibly could. I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but my plan was to glue it in place, let the glue set, and then come back and sand it flush. That way I can stain this piece as well. And I let that sit as I turn my attention to yet something else. I mentioned earlier in the video that I wanted to give this piece a little bit more of a modern interest, but also staying true to the Art Deco period. So I knew I wanted to do a gold line design along the front of the piece, and I chose this design that basically had 3 diamonds, varying sizes, with a line going through it. So geometry was not my friend here. I used a box I had existing and taped out around it. What I'm doing here is just initially taping out the design, the line design first. So here's that horizontal line that I was going to use as a guide for the other 2 smaller squares or diamonds. Just taking some measurements here to make sure that when I place them, they are equidistant from each other. And I used a smaller box to, again, tape out the smaller diamond shapes. In hindsight, I probably should have taped the box to the chest so it wasn't moving as much as it was, but it worked out. Here I am just cleaning up the extra tape. And this is the line design after it was completed. So next step is to basically tape around the negative space of the design. That way I'm going to pull the tape from the initial line design and I can fill in the space that results from that with some gold gilding. If you're enjoying my content so far, please remember to subscribe as a new channel. It really does help me out. I pull the initial line design tape and then I'm left with space that needs to be essentially colored in. This is what the final design would look like. So I used some top coat in a matte finish. I used that to just basically lightly brush in the line area where I was going to apply the gold paint. The reason I do this is because when you pull the tape, it actually gives you a much cleaner line. Without the top coat, I find that I do get a little bit of bleed through. Here is the gold paint that I use. I actually find this stuff at Hobby Lobby. It works really well. It is an oil-based paint. So in order to clean your brush afterwards, you need to use some mineral spirits, but it is solid and it actually dries very quickly. So I did 2 rounds of the gold paint, let that dry, and proceeded to peel back the tape. Here's the final result. I was really happy with this. I think it just gives it a little bit of interest. I love how the design actually complements the direction of the wood grain along the front. I wanted to tie in the gold design a little bit more to the rest of the piece. So I added a very thin line of gold between the crevice of the feet and then bounced right back to shaping this broken trim piece. After the glue had settled, I used my chisel to basically, again, chisel it as flush to the original trim work as possible. Sawed off the extra. Was pretty happy with it then, but I also used some wood filler to smooth out any sort of crevices that were in there. Sorry for the blurred camera angle here, but this is what I ended up with. I was pretty happy with it. Going back to some of those original patches, I needed to color match them and blend them in a little bit more because they really stood out after I had applied the hard wax oil. So I'm using my blend all sticks and my wood graining pens to blend it as much as possible. After I'm happy with the result, I just spray a little bit of Mohawk sanding sealer and that actually seals it in. That way it doesn't rub off when somebody goes to move the piece. Here's another corner that I'm trying to blend in. This is a learned skill, so show yourself some grace if it's not perfect every time, because it won't be. One of the final things I wanted to do with this piece is to apply some peel and stick wallpaper where the green original felt was. And this was a way harder process than I thought. I know some people use like a steamer to steam it out. I don't have a steamer, so I just used my fingers, which seemed to take forever. This whole process took about 2 hours. I did try to take a heat gun to the wood pieces, hoping to melt the glue and pull it apart, but that didn't work. It was not hide glue, unfortunately. So let's take a look back at where we started. This little chest was solid, but it needed a little bit of modernizing and some TLC, complete with scratches, veneer damage, stickers. And this is how it turned out. I'm actually in love with this piece. The veneer on it is so beautiful. All of the scratches on the top came off. They were luckily in the finish. The veneer patches you can't even see. I did add that gold detail line along the lip of the top, which really ties everything together. Overall, I was just super, super pleased with the look of this piece. But let me know what y'all think. Drop a comment below. Constructive criticism is always welcome. What would you do differently, if anything? As I mentioned earlier, this is the 1-year anniversary piece of the very first piece I ever did. Here's a picture of it. It was a mid-century modern lane cedar chest that I completely overpaid for. And this is what it ended up looking like. This piece sold in a matter of hours on Marketplace, and I was totally hooked. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.